I wasn't supposed to be at the airport that morning. I wasn't even supposed to know they were flying out. But real mothers know when something is wrong. And when your only son pretends you don't exist anymore, you feel it like a knife turning slowly inside your chest. I had found out about the vacation by accident. A voicemail, barely 10 seconds long, from my daughter-in-law meant for someone else. Something about packing sunscreen for Maui, making sure the twins had their floaties, and don't mention anything to Grandma. She hung up before realizing her mistake. For 2 days, I didn't sleep. My hands trembled while watering the orchids in the sunroom, the ones I used to prune with my grandson. I had picked him up from school 3 times a week for 2 years when my son and his wife were both working. I taught him how to tie his shoes, how to fold paper planes, how to pray when he couldn't sleep. But apparently, none of that mattered anymore. I wasn't mad. Not really. Anger is too hot, too temporary. No, what I felt was something colder, something like being slowly erased. It had started months ago. Fewer phone calls. Quick, polite check-ins. No more dinner invitations. "We've just been busy, Mom," was all Mark would say. And I, ever the understanding mother, let it go. After all, I raised him to work hard, provide for his family, take care of the people he loved. I just didn't expect to no longer be one of them. But that voicemail, that was a line drawn in cement. And the worst part wasn't that they were going to Maui without me. It was that they didn't even think I'd notice. So that's why I found myself at gate C-17 at LAX, standing behind a pillar with my scarf tucked up to my chin, heart pounding like I was about to commit a crime. The departure board blinked, cool and indifferent. Flight 2262 to Maui on time. I saw them. Mark, in his navy blue jacket, tapping on his phone like always. Jenna, holding both kids by their hands, her voice high-pitched and cheerful, like a woman performing motherhood. And the twins, Ethan and Ellie, bouncing around with their tiny backpacks, oblivious to everything. Oblivious to me. I should have turned around. I should have gone home and poured myself a cup of tea and let the moment pass. But some moments don't pass. They rot. They infect. They take root in your bones until you can't breathe without remembering them. So I stepped closer. Not toward them, God, no. I still had some pride. But I wanted one last look. One last taste of the family I thought I still belonged to. Then it happened. "Passenger Maria Bennett, please approach the gate desk." Maria Bennett. Final call for flight 226. My name, spoken aloud into the terminal, crisp and sharp. My son turned his head so fast it was like someone slapped him. His eyes scanned the crowd, and for a moment just a flicker looked right at me. But he didn't recognize me. Or maybe he did and didn't want to admit it. I hadn't planned it. The ticket, the name, the voice over the speakers. But sometimes God whispers things into your chest, and you move before you know why. Let me go back. 3 days before that morning, I did something I had never done before. I booked a flight without telling anyone. I used the little money left in the account George and I once used for anniversaries and small vacations. I told myself I'd go to Maui not to ruin their trip, but to breathe the same air as them. To exist, even if in secret. I wasn't going to confront them. Just watch the ocean. See the sun set the same way it would for them. Maybe sit in a different hotel with my paperback and a cold drink and pretend I still mattered. But when I got to the airport and saw them there, so full of life and laughter, a fury began to bloom inside my ribcage. How easy it had become for them to leave me behind. The gate attendant called my name again. Louder. That was when Mark finally walked over to the counter. "Maria Bennett," he said. She's not supposed to be here." The woman behind the desk raised an eyebrow. "She checked in. That's all we know. I could have stayed hidden. I could have let him board the plane and forget me one more time." But something in me snapped. I stepped forward, slowly, pulling the scarf down from my face. "I'm right here," I said. Mark froze. The air between us grew thick with silence, every second loaded with all the years we hadn't said what needed to be said. "Mom," he breathed. "What are you doing?" "What am I doing?" I said, my voice quiet but sharp. "I'm trying not to disappear, Mark." He looked over his shoulder, panic dancing in his eyes. Jenna had seen me now too. She grabbed the kids and turned away, pretending to be busy. The attendant tapped her pen. "You two need a minute?" We both ignored her. "You weren't invited," he finally said, his voice low and tight. "No," I whispered. "I wasn't." I saw the guilt bloom in his face. like a man just now realizing the extent of a wound he had caused without ever looking down. "You could have called," he said. I almost laughed. "So could you." The silence stretched again, longer this time. Behind us, other passengers began boarding. The hum of the terminal returned. But we were still locked there, two people on opposite sides of a chasm neither of us could name. Then Ethan saw me. He broke away from his mother and ran to me, arms wide. "Grandma." The sound cracked something inside me. I knelt, hugged him, inhaled the scent of his hair like it was medicine. "You came," he said. "I did," I whispered. "I wanted to see the ocean." "Come with us," he yelled, turning toward his dad. "She can sit next to me." Mark didn't speak. He looked like a man caught between two fires, his past and his present, burning from both ends. Then Jenna walked over. She looked tired, not angry, just worn. "She already has a ticket," she said, her voice flat. "Let her come." And just like that, the ice cracked. Not melted, no, but cracked, just enough to breathe through. We boarded in silence. I sat between the twins. They each took one of my hands. And as the plane lifted into the sky, Mark leaned across the aisle and whispered something I hadn't heard in a long time. "I'm sorry." I nodded. I didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, that's enough. The Hawaiian air wrapped around me like a warm blanket, fragrant with salt and plumeria. The twins burst into laughter as soon as we exited the airport, chasing each other through rows of luggage carts while Jenna scrolled through her phone, ignoring me entirely. Mark stayed back to speak with the rental car attendant, but his eyes flicked to me every few seconds, like he wasn't sure if I was really here or if his guilt had conjured me out of thin air. I had packed light just to carry on and a paperback. No swimsuits. No hiking sandals. I hadn't expected to be welcomed, let alone included. And yet, here I was, waiting for a ride with a family that had forgotten I existed less than a week ago. The ride to the resort was quiet. The kids babbled about sea turtles and volcanoes. Jenna tapped out a few emails. Mark drove, one hand on the wheel, the other resting nervously in his lap. I sat in the back, watching the lush green roll by, unsure whether I had forced my way into something or been begrudgingly let back in. When we reached the resort, a glittering coastal property nestled among cliffs and palm trees, Jenna turned to her husband. "So where's she staying?" she asked, deliberately not looking at me. Mark flinched. "She has a room." "You got her a room?" "No," I said quietly. "I booked one 3 days ago. I didn't plan to stay with you." Jenna seemed relieved by that, which stung more than it should have. We checked in, and I accepted my key card from the receptionist with a smile that hurt my face. The kids pulled me in two different directions, wanting to show me everything: the koi pond, the big pool shaped like a turtle, the shaved ice stand with 10 flavors. I indulged them for a bit, then excused myself and headed to my room. It was modest but beautiful. A view of the sea, a single bed with crisp white sheets, a little basket of pineapple candies on the side table. I sat on the edge and exhaled deeply. For a moment, I let the silence fill the room, tried to gather the scattered pieces of my dignity and stitch them into something I could wear for the week. A knock startled me. It was Mark, holding 2 iced lemonades. "Can I come in?" I opened the door wider, said nothing, and stepped aside. He handed me one of the drinks. We sat down facing the ocean, the wind rustling the white curtains behind us. "I didn't know how to tell you," he said. "About the trip?" He nodded. "So you decided not to," I said. He rubbed his temples, the way he used to when he'd been caught lying as a child. "It's not that I didn't want you there. It's just Jenna said it might be easier this way. Less complicated." I turned toward him. "Since when did I become complicated, Mark?" He didn't answer. "I never asked for much," I continued. "I never wanted to be in the middle of your life. Just near enough to still be part of it." "I know." "Then why?" He let out a breath that shook slightly. "Jenna said you made her feel judged. That you hovered too much around the kids. That sometimes it felt like you were still parenting us, not just being a grandma." I blinked. "I changed diapers, Mark. I picked up your daughter from preschool when Jenna had the flu. I spent my retirement savings on your mortgage when you were almost foreclosed. Was that me parenting you or helping?" His jaw clenched. "I didn't mean for it to get here," he said softly. "I think we just drifted. Then it got awkward, and we didn't know how to go back. So you left me behind." A beat passed. "I'm sorry," he said again. "Truly." I nodded, the lemonade cold and sharp in my throat. We'll figure it out, I said, but not all at once. He looked relieved by that, and we sat a while longer in silence, listening to the waves. Over the next few days, something strange began to happen. At first, I expected awkwardness and half-hearted small talk, but instead, the children pulled me into their world like nothing had ever changed. We made sandcastles with moats. I taught Ellie how to do cartwheels on the beach. Ethan begged me every morning to braid his hair like I used to. It felt like a balm, a quiet salve on the hurt. They hadn't forgotten me. Children rarely do. Jenna, however, remained stiff and distant. She offered smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes and avoided being alone with me. I didn't push. Some wounds don't close with words. They need time, space, and maybe a little grace. On the fourth day, something shifted. It happened at dinner. The restaurant was one of those beachside grills, candles flickering on driftwood tables, steel guitar playing softly in the background. Jenna reached for her wine and accidentally knocked it into her lap. She gasped, embarrassed, and I instinctively reached over with my napkin to help. She paused. Our hands touched. Sorry, I said, pulling back. No, She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. Thank you. I offered a tight smile. Old habits. A long silence stretched between us before she spoke again. I lost my mom when I was 15, she said suddenly. I blinked. She died of breast cancer. It was quick, violent. My dad wasn't around much after that. I didn't know what to say. I think, she continued, I've always carried this fear that someone would come in and try to replace her, or remind me of what I lost. Your kindness, it scared me. I swallowed hard. Jenna, I never wanted to replace anyone. I just wanted to love the people who mattered to my son. She nodded, tears glittering in her eyes. I know, she said. That night, something finally softened between us. She handed me Ellie's sleeping form on the walk back to the resort and said, You can tuck her in tonight. She asked for you. It was a simple gesture, but it felt like the first true invitation I'd received in years. The next morning, Mark suggested a family snorkeling trip. All of us, he emphasized. I hesitated. I didn't pack a suit. We'll get one. I'm not sure I'm up for it. The twins chimed in. Please, Grandma. And I couldn't say no to that. So I went. The water was cold at first, but beautiful. A world of color and light. I floated with Ellie on my back, the sun on my face, her laughter spilling into the sky. I hadn't felt that light in years. Later that afternoon, as we dried off on the sand, Mark approached me again. I think we forgot, he said. Forgot what? What it means to belong. To need each other. I looked out at the sea. You don't just forget something like that. No, he said. But you can choose to remember. I let those words sit with me. Let them sink in deep. That evening, they invited me to dinner again at a nicer restaurant this time. We toasted with guava juice. Jenna laughed at one of my stories. Ethan drew a crayon portrait of the entire family and handed it to me proudly. I noticed something as I looked at the picture. He had drawn me in the center. I held that drawing in my hands like it was something sacred. Crayon lines, uneven smiles, sunbursts in the sky, but it meant more than any apology. It was a child's instinct to center love. And in his world, I was right there. That night, I sat on my balcony, the moonlight casting silver across the ocean. I thought about all the years I had spent worrying about whether I was too involved or not enough. Whether my silence had been mistaken for distance. Whether my presence had become a burden instead of a comfort. George had always told me, you love them the way you love orchids, gently, but consistently. That's all you can do. I closed my eyes and imagined his voice, soft and kind. Then I heard a knock again. Jenna. She was barefoot, hair tucked behind her ears, holding 2 cups of hot tea. Can I sit? She asked. I nodded. We sat in silence for a few moments, the way people do when they're building something fragile between them. I've been meaning to ask you something, she finally said. I turned toward her. That time we almost lost the house, she continued. You gave us the down payment we needed. But you never mentioned it again. What? I took a slow sip of tea before answering. Because love doesn't come with receipts, I said. Her eyes welled up. I think I've spent so long trying to be in control of everything. I forgot how to accept help. I saw your help as judgment, as interference. But it wasn't. It was love, wasn't it? It always was. She nodded slowly, swallowing the emotion that bubbled in her throat. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. It's okay. I said, meaning it this time. Sometimes we're not ready to see what's right in front of us. She laughed gently. That's Mark too. He holds guilt like it's a keepsake. But he's trying. We both are. I reached out, placed a hand over hers. Then that's enough. The next day was our last full day in Maui. We spent it together, all 6 of us. We went to a botanical garden in the morning, wandered among vibrant plumeria trees, and watched the twins feed koi fish with wide eyes and messy hands. We had lunch from a food truck, fresh poke bowls and mango juice, and then headed back to the beach for one final swim. As we stood near the shoreline, Ethan tugged on my hand. "Grandma," he asked, "are you coming on the next vacation too?" I bent down. "Would you like that?" He nodded so hard his curls bounced. "Yes, we can build a bigger sandcastle next time. And maybe you can sit next to me on the plane again." I smiled, blinking back tears. "I'd love that." Jenna came up behind us, placing a towel around Ellie. She glanced at me and said, "Actually, we were talking about that." "Oh, we're going to Yosemite in December. Renting a cabin. We were wondering if you'd like to come." My heart stuttered. "Really?" I asked, trying not to sound too eager. "Really," Mark said, coming up beside her. "You deserve more than an apology, Mom. You deserve to be part of this." I felt something bloom in my chest, not just relief, but peace. Peace from knowing that I hadn't imagined it all, that I hadn't been forgotten, that somewhere, under the hurt, love had still lived. That night, during our final dinner, Mark stood up as the waiter brought the check. "I want to say something," he began, his voice low but steady. The table went quiet. "I know we haven't always been the best at showing it, but you mean the world to us, Mom. You always have. I think we got caught up in our own lives, and somewhere along the way, we forgot how to reach back. But we're reaching now. I hope it's not too late." I covered his hand with mine. "It never is." As we walked back to our rooms under the stars, Ellie wrapped her arms around my waist and whispered, "You're the best, Grandma." I kissed her forehead. "And you're the best, Ellie." Later that night, as I packed my suitcase, I found something tucked between my folded clothes. It was the drawing Ethan had made, but now there was something new added. A second drawing, taped to the back. A house, with 6 stick figures holding hands in front of it. Above them, a banner that read, "Welcome home, Grandma." My tears came quietly, falling onto the crayon lines as I held it to my chest. I hadn't just been invited on a vacation. I had been invited back into a family. The next morning, we stood at the airport again, this time together. As we waited for our boarding call, the twins took turns pushing my carry-on suitcase like it was a race car. Jenna leaned her head on Mark's shoulder. And me? I stood quietly, breathing in the air, holding their laughter in my heart. Then came the announcement. Final boarding call for Flight 227 to Los Angeles. All passengers, please proceed to Gate C3. I turned to Mark. "Looks like they're calling my name again." He smiled. "This time, we're answering together." And we did. Back in Los Angeles, the familiarity of traffic and concrete replaced the rustling palms and ocean breeze. Life resumed its usual rhythm: emails, school drop-offs, grocery lists. But something between us had shifted. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was subtle, like the way Mark started calling twice a week instead of once a month. Like how Jenna sent photos of the kids during the day, Ellie's new ballet pose, Ethan's painting from art class. I didn't expect the change to last. But it did. Or at least, it tried. Until the Thursday morning I collapsed in my kitchen. I was slicing apples, the kind Ellie liked with cinnamon, when everything went soft. My knees buckled, and the floor met me like an unwelcome surprise. The ceiling tilted. My mouth tried to call out, but my voice betrayed me. Darkness swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital bed with wires taped to my skin, a machine humming steadily beside me. Mark was there. So was Jenna. The twins weren't. "You're awake," he said, gripping my hand like a lifeline. "Thank God." "What happened?" I rasped. He exchanged a glance with Jenna before answering. "You had a minor stroke, Mom. They said it was caught early. You'll recover." But his voice cracked. "It could have been worse." I stared at the fluorescent light above me. "How long have I been here?" 2 days. "And you're just telling me now?" "You've been in and out," Jenna said gently. "They kept you sedated." I turned my head. "The kids? They're okay. They miss you." A nurse entered then and adjusted something on the monitor, giving us a small smile. "You're lucky," she said. "Another 10 minutes, and this could have gone very differently." I lay there in silence. Not from fear, but from clarity. Life didn't wait. It didn't care about broken relationships or hesitant forgiveness. It moved. It slipped between fingers and left regret in its place if you weren't careful. That night, after everyone left, a soft knock came at the door. It was Jenna. She sat beside me without asking and pulled something from her purse. A folded piece of paper. "I found this in Ellie's backpack," she said. "She said she made it for you." I opened it slowly. My chest tightened. "She doesn't understand what happened," Jenna said, her voice thin. "But she understands enough." I looked at her. "She's sensitive, like her father was." Jenna nodded. "She loves you deeply. They both do." I hesitated. "And you?" She took a breath. "I'm starting to remember how to love you. I think I always wanted to, but I was afraid of being replaced. Afraid the kids would love you more than they love me." "Oh, Jenna," I whispered. "This isn't a competition." "I know," she said. "Now I know." I placed my hand over hers, weak but steady. "You're their mother. No one can take that. I'm just here to remind them they come from people who love deeply." She nodded, tears brimming. 2 days later, I was released with strict instructions for rest, therapy, and a low-sodium diet. Jenna offered to let me stay with them during recovery. For a moment, I almost refused. Pride still held tightly to the corners of my mind. But then I looked at the twins, waiting beside the car with signs that read, "Welcome home, Grandma," written in glitter markers, and I said yes. Their guest room became my healing space. Ellie brought me pretend tea parties. Ethan read me picture books with exaggerated voices. Mark did the grocery shopping without complaining, and Jenna cooked low-salt meals with herbs and citrus. Somehow, the house that once held a silent wall between us now carried the rhythm of shared living. One evening, as we all sat together watching an old Disney movie, Ellie crawled into my lap. "Grandma," she whispered, "will you die soon?" The question pierced the quiet. I smoothed her hair. "Not today, sweetheart. I plan to be around long enough to see you graduate." She looked up. "From college." "From college," I said. "And maybe even law school, if you feel like it." She giggled and leaned into me, satisfied. After the kids went to bed, Mark approached with a cardboard box in his hands. "Found this in the attic," he said. "Figured you'd want to look through it." I opened it on the kitchen table. Old photographs, birthday cards, George's Navy medals, a faded letter. I picked up the letter and recognized the handwriting instantly. George's. I hadn't seen it in over a decade. I unfolded the paper slowly, heart pounding. "Maria, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. And I hate that, because I would have done anything to have one more breakfast with you, one more morning in the garden. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you never really lose the people who made you who you are. Promise me this. Don't spend your days waiting to be remembered. Make them remember. Walk into rooms like you own the sun. Be soft, yes, but never invisible. And when the time comes when Mark forgets or drifts in wait, go to him. Say your name loud. Remind him who raised him. He'll come back. He always does. I love you more than oceans. Gee." Tears spilled freely now, blurring the words. Mark sat silently beside me. "You found this?" I asked. He nodded. Jenna was looking for the Christmas decorations. It was under some photo albums. I handed it to him. He was right. About everything. Mark read it in silence, then wiped his face. "I don't deserve you," he said. "You don't have to," I whispered. "You just have to love me while you can." He nodded slowly. "I do." Jenna joined us a moment later and wrapped her arm around his. And just like that, the distance of years began to dissolve. Autumn settled over Los Angeles like a soft sigh. The air grew crisp, and golden leaves gathered on the sidewalk outside Mark's home. My recovery had gone well, better than the doctors expected. I was stronger now, walking each morning through the neighborhood with a cane George had once carved for me. I carried myself slower these days, but not smaller. The kids had drawn a sign and taped it to the front door. Grandma's house, too. Jenna hadn't taken it down. That small detail meant more to me than any speech. One Sunday morning, as I tended to a pot of simmering apple cider, Mark entered the kitchen holding a legal-sized envelope. "I've been meaning to talk to you," he said, laying it on the table. My heart fluttered. I dried my hands on a towel. "Is something wrong?" He shook his head. "No, but something's overdue." I sat down slowly, watching him. "I found this last week," he said, "in Dad's old files. Behind the safe." He pushed the envelope toward me. I opened it with trembling fingers. It was a trust, a family trust. In it, George had designated me as executor of a fund he'd quietly started over 15 years ago. The document was dated just after Mark and Jenna had bought their first home. This isn't real, I whispered. He never told me. Mark leaned forward. He left it for us, for the grandkids. But he made you the steward. His note said, she'll know when it's time. I sat back, stunned. It wasn't millions, but it was more than enough to give Ethan and Ellie a start in life. College, travel, maybe even a home someday. Mark watched me closely. What do you think he meant by, when it's time? I smiled through the sting in my eyes. I think he meant now, when we've come back together. He nodded. I'd like to start a scholarship fund. In his name. You and I can design it together. Something small, but lasting. I reached for his hand. That would make him proud. The next few weeks passed in a warm blur of purpose. Mark and I worked side by side drafting proposals. Jenna helped with graphics. Even the kids got involved, Ellie drawing a logo with stars and George's name in bubble letters. We called it the G. Bennett Foundation for Quiet Givers. The mission, to support seniors raising grandchildren, a cause close to my heart and George's. On the day of the launch event, the family insisted I be the one to speak. I resisted. I had never liked microphones, never liked being center stage. But as I stood at the podium, surrounded by faces I didn't know but who had come to hear about something George and I had only ever whispered about in our kitchen, I realized something. My name had been called once before in an airport terminal. Now, I was answering it on my own terms. Good evening, I began, hands steady on the wood. My name is Maria Bennett. I'm 74 years old, and for a while, I thought I had been forgotten. A hush fell over the room. I thought my time had passed, that my years of raising a family, of giving quietly, had faded into a kind of invisibility. But here's what I've learned. Love, when it's real, leaves a trail. And if you follow it long enough, it always leads you back to the people who matter. I paused, took a breath. My husband George believed in helping quietly. He believed in second chances. And today, my family and I honor that belief not just with money, but with reconnection, with forgiveness, with choosing to love each other again, out loud. The applause came slow, then built like a tide. Later that evening, as we walked back to the car under the soft glow of streetlights, Mark slipped his arm around my shoulders. You were incredible, Mom. I laughed. I barely remembered half of what I said. Jenna turned around from the passenger seat. You said exactly what needed to be heard. From the back seat, Ethan piped up, Can I make a speech at my birthday too? Everyone laughed. The months that followed were full of what I once thought I had lost: invites to school plays, Sunday dinners, quiet afternoons where I helped with math homework or baked bread that filled the house with cinnamon and memory. Then came the day Mark asked the question I never expected. He had taken me to the garden center, said they wanted to plant something in the backyard with me. A memory tree, he called it. As we walked through the rows of saplings, he paused in front of a small cherry blossom tree. Mom, he said quietly, would you consider selling the old house? I blinked. What? The kids want you here full time. We want you here full time. No more bouncing back and forth. This is your home now, if you want it to be. I didn't answer right away. That house held decades of memories. George's shirts still hung in the closet. His watch still sat on the nightstand. But I looked into my son's eyes, saw not just a man, but a son trying to build something lasting. You'd really want me here? All the time. He nodded. We need you here. I smiled. Then let's plant the tree. That weekend, we dug the hole together, Mark, the kids, Jenna, and me. We placed the cherry blossom in the center of the yard, its delicate branches trembling in the breeze. Afterward, Ethan brought me a small wooden sign he had painted in crooked, bright letters. Planted with love by Grandma Maria. It was then, standing with my family around the tree, dirt under our nails, sun on our faces, that I realized something I hadn't dared to believe in Maui. I wasn't just remembered. I was home. In the spring, the tree would bloom. And so would we.